I'll be real honest here. I was kinda surprised to see all the flack that Zenless Zone Zero was getting just mere days after it got released. While I was aware that this wasn't going to be the same caliber of a game as Genshin or Wuthering Waves would be, it still kinda threw me off to see how much people didn't like the game. Granted, even though I myself had zero interest in the game, see what I did there? Zero interest, like Zenless Zone. Oh, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna stop. Anyway, I had zero interest in trying the game or even glancing at all the trailers and demos that they were putting out, but literally on the day of release, I decided, you know what? Let's just see what this whole shebang is all about. So with absolutely zero knowledge and expectation of how the game is going to be and how gameplay was going to be, I bolted myself on my chair, hopped in the game, played a good couple of hours, and honestly found myself genuinely surprised at the fact that I ended up enjoying the game the way I did. Amongst all the negatives that people and content creators are spouting about this game, I'm gonna see what many people have said and compare it relative to my experience and see why is it that the game sucks for most people. At least for most of the ones who are commenting here on YouTube, and see if I can focus on the good side of stuff instead. Now, one of the biggest gripes that I've seen against this game is apparently how easy the combat is. Namely the notion that if you just button mash and don't even bother to dodge the enemy attacks, nothing will happen to you. And to that I say, yeah, no fucking shit. That's how it's supposed to be when it's still in the early game. When's the last time you heard of people dying to enemies during early phases of a gacha game since the time when Child was deemed too hard by the Genshin community? Barely ever, because the most played gacha games are the ones that are able to be played in a casual manner. Early game is easy so that it doesn't drive away the people who just wants to go in and have a fun time, because at the end of it all, the majority of the player base will be these relaxing casual players. Besides, if that's the case, then I can say the same complaint in regards to something like Wuthering Waves. The beginning was just me either hitting an enemy or pressing right click to avoid them, and I can pretty much kill anything without the use of intro skills and all those shenanigans. Getting hit also meant nothing at the start of the game, even against bosses, so it's the exact same scenario. But the one piece of complaint, particularly one that was voiced by Empash, who is apparently notorious for quitting gacha games according to his comment section, that I really have a problem with was this.
But in most of the content, if you just keep spamming like shift and attack and press E once in a while and press spacebar when you see a golden flash, you will do 95% of the damage required to beat the hardest content in the game. I'm telling you.
Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I personally hate it when people use this kind of argument where they just boil down the gameplay to such a simple-minded way of viewing things, because let me tell you something. You can apply that logic to all games in history. When you stupidly oversimplify stuff, of course it's gonna sound so dumb and easy. Because let me tell you something. The whole if you just keep spamming shift and attack and press E once in a while and press spacebar when you see a golden glint is a logic that you can apply to Wuthering Waves too. I'm mentioning WoWa a lot because this guy's a Wuthering Waves boy, so what better way to compare this other than with a game he knows a fair bit about. But just think about it. The whole of WoWa's combat is, especially in endgame, is to dodge 900% of the time, or click on the enemy when a bright glowing circle appears on them to deal damage, press skill or echo if available, and alt if available, and rinse and repeat. See how stupid it sounds like if you just boil things down to an unreasonable level? Football, arguably the biggest sport and game in the whole world, is just 22 dudes on a field kicking a ball to a super open net. Formula 1 is just a bunch of rich dudes driving really fast cars around in circle for 60 to 70 laps, and badminton is just people hitting a feathered ball until one of them misses. The problem with looking at things this way is that it just ignores so much more of what each game actually offers. Zenless's switching and chaining system is a blast for people who are taking it easy but still want to go through a fun combat system. Not to mention the fact that once difficulty starts to ramp up and we get to face tougher opponents, then we'd be able to better use everything at our disposal, and all the intricate mechanics within each character's skill will be all the more important to learn. The fact that he compared it to Wuthering Waves just made it much more of a low blow in my opinion, because compared to that game, we are giving Zenless a lot less of a chance to prove itself, which I figured is just quite unfair at this point in time. The game's literally 2 days old. let it reach to a point where it can actually showcase everything it has to offer instead of beating it when it hasn't even gotten a chance to present itself. Because in terms of what it has to offer, it's got its fair share of cool things to look forward to. The graphics are outstanding, and the world design is everything something like a Pokemon fan would have wished for their game to look like if it ever gotten a semi-open world version. The characters who popped out so far all have their own bit of flair and personality, but a lot of people wouldn't know that because they just skip the story and then complain that it's boring. And these characters are pretty much very well designed. The animations, expressions, and cutscene compositions are one of the best that I've seen, and the voice acting is immaculate for gacha standards. The story, while not showing anything too outstanding so far, is just plain solid and doesn't stupidly break storytelling conventions. And I swear to God, for those of you who are saying that Wuthering Waves had a better story start than Zenless, just stop, man. I'm an English lit major, and even I can't chew through the amount of word salad that first arc of the story had. People complain that the whole mix of voice line parts with non-voice line parts is weird, but think about it from Hoyo's perspective. 90% of the comments online when they talk about Hoyoverse games is that they dismiss the story because they just skip it, because people only care about the gameplay. So if those voice lines were gonna be skipped anyway, why not save the budget for the bigger cutscenes instead of the smaller scene transfer moments? They're just trying to save it so that they can use it for other stuff, and now that it's not there you complain about it? Honestly, just make up your mind for once. A more unique problem that I see from most people is also how much they hate the TV's exploration system. Which, well, to be fair, I can say is a very fair grievance because it's not really a system that you see in many gacha games, especially if you only play the mainstream ones like Genshin, Wuthering Waves, and Star Rail, so I can see why people didn't really like it. I, on the other hand, played old-timey Counter-Strike beforehand, and let me tell you, they had a similarly structured exploration system as the TVs, but infinitely worse and much more tedious than what Zenless has. So I've been scarred so hard that I've actually enjoyed the TVs instead. That's what trauma does to you, people. I don't know if there's a way for them to change it completely out of the game, but I guess we'll just have to see. What I think set everything askew from the beginning was the expectation of what size of a game Zenless Zone Zero was actually supposed to be. And I don't mean in terms of storage size, because that's not really a Zenless problem, that's a whole ass gaming industry problem. Everything is just a space sucker now. But in my opinion, it's clear that this was supposed to be a game that is meant to really go back to the casual nature of how gacha games used to be. Remember, as much as we see people play this game on PC, it is still a mobile game first and foremost. And quite honestly, the level of gameplay and difficulty for people who just wants to whip it out on their phones and play it without a care for having to be hardcore at it is at quite a decent sweet spot. My biggest initial concerns with playing this game, and the reason why I didn't even thought of trying it, was the fact that I wasn't sure that I'd be able to spare enough time for the game in order to make it worth building a fun account for. I still maintain my Genshin and Star Rail accounts after this long, and I recently had to quit Wuthering Waves because it was pulling my time away from another gacha that I genuinely loved playing more than all the other ones. But with how relaxed and quickly I can play Zenless in a daily basis, it just makes it that perfect choice to be that sit back and chill option of like a third game or something. Another weird reason that people are using to bash this game, specifically from the Wuthering Waves side of things, is because people apparently said that Zenless was supposed to be the woo-wah killer. And I just want to ask, where did people even say all those stuff? Because I've personally never seen it. In any ways, it's also dumb on both sides in my opinion. You're dumb if you think that Zenless was supposed to compete with Woo-Wah, and you're also dumb if you think that Zenless was the same as Woo-Wah just because they share similar combat mechanics. Not everyone wants Souls-like level type of mechanic in every game they play, nor would they want to spend the time to hone such mechanics, which is why I think if there are people who said that they were gonna quit Woo-Wah for Zenless, it's probably because they were looking for something more relaxing to play. Because you have to admit, a game like Woo-Wah not only needs investment to, strengthen your character and all that crap, but you need more investment to hone your mechanics to play the game for the end game. And for some people, that's just not what they're looking for in a game. At the end of the day, Zenless Zone Zero has its own share of fun for the people who just wants to play things in a fun and calm manner. And for those of you saying that there are people who finds it rewarding to overcome difficult content, then at this moment, the game is probably just not for you. You simply can't argue that everyone has to overcome difficulty in games to find a sense of reward. But in a similar vein, it's also in a way where you can't argue that all everyone wants to do in games is to have fun. Both sides of the coin will always exist, and both will have their own avenues of games, and Zenless Zone Zero just happened to fall on the rather easier and casual side. Have your grievances for the game all you want, but don't shit on the people who actually find enjoyment in it, because what people consider as fun will always differ from one person to another. I'm a huge example too. If you ask me to honestly tell you what really got me to sit and stay within Zenless, then I would just refer you to this scene at the beginning of the game.
I'm pissed, and this station's reporter, I can't listen to this anymore. Those criminals need to get...
I don't know, I just find it much more natural for people to swear within their speech, and I've just genuinely never seen this in other gacha games before, and I just found it so amusing that I just immediately went,
You son of a bitch, I'm in!
and Hoyo, don't be a pussy. Put a profanity filter option in the game and let me turn that shit off. People play games for an infinite amount of differing reasons that it'd be impossible for anyone to really blankly judge why others would play something. I'm not here to tell you to play Zenless, I'm here to tell you to leave those who are enjoying it alone. You can relax in your tougher mechanic games while we bing chilling in this fun little casual game that we have. Like, in another perspective, if you happen to have this kind of scenario, you wouldn't tell your mom to stop playing Candy Crush, right? That's really all I have to say for now. I just hope that the people who are actually liking the game don't get discouraged over seeing the inane amount of hate that some comment sections are spouting here and there. And that the people who were actually interested in trying the game out do eventually give it a go. It really is a fun game when all you want to do is look at great visuals while languidly beating enemies to a pulp. I have no doubt that the endgame content is probably gonna be harder than what most have thought it off to be. The game is 2 days old and we just need to give it some breathing space so that it can find its foothold in the gacha gaming space. In any case, like the video if you did and feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Until the next video, my name's Leafy, and I'll see y'all next time. Sayonara.